Good afternoon. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper, and I'm here today with Nick Clayton, the CTO of Savitude. Good afternoon, Nick. How you doing today?
Hi, Mark. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thanks for joining us today. So to start with, can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Yeah, so my background has primarily been throughout my life in computer vision and machine learning. I got started in process automation at a really young age, writing scripts to play video games for me way back in elementary school. Um, and sort of evolved from there to more formal structures in like high school robotics. And then obviously I majored in computer science and electrical engineering in college at the University of Michigan. A lot of fantastic professors there in both computer vision and AI. I would say Silvio Savrasa and John Laird were both phenomenal influences on my development in those fields. Um, throughout my life, I've worked at startups in the robotics space, in the computer vision space, and the AI space. The current one is Savitude, which I'm co-founder and CTO. And we have a AI solution for fashion retailers and designers.
Oh, very interesting. So what has been your experience with remote employment, both as an employer and an employee?
Yeah, so I've been on both sides. I've had managers who were not in the same state as me, and I've managed people not in the same state as me. And I would say overall it's been very good. I work in software, obviously, which has an inherent lack of physical component. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend remote hardware companies, but in software, it I think works really well. I think it promotes sort of independence of thought that I think leads to really good creativity overall, and avoids some of the problems that you get with like groupthink if everybody's constantly absorbing all the same information every day.
Yeah, and I noticed you have an office in Palo Alto, which is Silicon Valley. Do you have people under you that work in that office?
So I do have people under me who work on the West Coast. We have a designer who actually lives in Portland, who works on our product. She's a phenomenal designer, and a lot of her domain expertise is grounding both the data that we have in our system and the way that our system is built around fashion principles. So one of the core tenets of the way that we have built out our technology at Savitude is that designers and engineers should both be involved in creating the actual technology itself. But we've been able to do that, across the country from each other. So that's been a really close working relationship that was also remote.
And when you say designers, you mean clothes designers, right? Not
fashion designers. She's got a MFA in fashion and an undergraduate degree in sculpture.
Wow, very interesting.
So, yeah. Wow. And my co-founder and CEO is in the Palo Alto office and also has an MFA in fashion. So we're distributed, across the country.
Very interesting. And do you have anybody in New York City? They have a pretty big fashion industry.
We have some advisors in New York City. We don't currently have anyone on the payroll in New York City.
Okay, well that's good.
We've been to New York many times. It's a lovely city.
Actually, a little side note: my son used to live on Fashion Boulevard. Fashion Boulevard, right in New York?
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we've traveled there for meetings with various customers.
Yeah, it's very nice. So what do you think is the future of remote employment, and what do you think could be done differently to make it more effective?
Yeah, so certainly a lot of tools are sort of coming to the forefront now. Internet bandwidth has gotten to a point where we're having this podcast over Zoom now, and it's working great, right? So I think that as more and more tools are developed and as more and more of work becomes the sort of creative intellectual work, that doesn't necessarily require you to be welding or something. I think that the remote portion of the workforce is going to grow pretty substantially. I think it is going to be enabled particularly by the tools that are coming out now as people are sort of forced to work remote.
Yeah.
That's really changing the landscape in terms of both how people think about remote. It used to be you would never consider doing a remote customer meeting. It's just like it's not how it was done. Particularly, we work with fashion retailers. The retail industry is known for that sort of face-to-face interaction being king, and that's not necessarily the expectation anymore. And I think that really facilitates remote work.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I know there are companies in Silicon Valley and other places that are making tools now. They're actually building them as we speak to make it easy.
Yeah, and there are conversely companies in Silicon Valley who are saying to their workers, we've had you work remote all through this pandemic, and if you don't want to come back to the office at the end of, once a vaccine's out or whatever, no problem. Keep working from home. It's been working great.
Yes.
Yeah, I do think it is, heavily caveated by the limitation in the types of work that you can do remote. I also have a degree in electrical engineering. I've worked on robotic systems. I've worked on UAV systems. Both of those require you to be physically present and working on a physical device.
Yeah.
Frequently, the devices cost a lot of money.
Yes.
Thousands of dollars for individual sensors, and you kind of need a centralized location for that.
Yes. That makes sense. So what is the story behind Savitude? Who's your target audience? How long you been in business? All those things.
Yeah, so we've been going for over 4 years now. It's been, we started out, Camilla Olson, my co-founder and CEO, has done several startups in the biomedical engineering space. Particularly, she had 2 successful exits with predictive modeling companies. And after that, she went back to school, got an MFA in fashion, ran her own label. And so at her label, she realized the problem with the way that she had been taught to design was that the way that designers are taught is on the dress form that they have. And the dress form that they have is a single body shape. In women's fashion, it's the hourglass body shape. And the hourglass body shape is 20% of women. So she was having a lot of trouble in her label fitting all the body shapes that are out there based on the training in just the hourglass body shape. And so she did a lot of research and looked around for what are the actual body shapes and how can I create a collection that will serve everyone. And that was really difficult. And so she started thinking a little bit about the more predictive modeling side of things. And I've known Camilla for 18 years now. I did musicals with her son growing up.
Oh, wow.
So we've known each other since I was a wee lad. And she reached out to me because I have this background in computer vision and machine learning about possibly implementing that sort of concept of, okay, how do we make a solution that creates fashion for everyone? And so we started iterating on that design, and we have created a solution that allows us to both make recommendations at the consumer level to help consumers find the right clothes for them, but then also, and I think more importantly to inclusivity overall, is we've created a solution that allows designers and buyers, when they're creating their assortments and collections, to be mindful of their actual body shape of
Interesting.
their customers. And so they can actually create a collection that they're not creating only for one body shape. There's going to be less going into the landfill at the end of the day, fewer returns, happier customers.
Wow.
And there's about $550 billion of wasted inventory every year in fashion. So it's a huge problem.
Wow.
And most of that is just going straight into the landfill. So our solution helps reduce that, and also gives a way for designers and retailers to look at that leftover inventory and redesign it as well.
Interesting. So, I mean, just in a nutshell, is it basically is the waste because a woman will see, and it could be a man, but a woman will see a design, particular dress that she likes and says, oh, I'm going to order that. She gets it and it's not flattering on her, so she doesn't wear it. And is this like, they'll do the same design across multiple body types?
Yeah, and so they'll create a single design. 44% of returns are because of a mismatch between the body shape of the person buying the clothes and the design details and silhouette of the clothes. So it's not necessarily that they got the wrong size. It's that they ordered it and it couldn't ever fit them because it's just not in the right proportions, or there are design details that are unflattering to them. So we help reduce that.
And does this apply to both men's and women's fashion, or is it mainly women's?
It does. We're starting with women's. That is where Camilla and Jungha's design expertise lies. And it's frankly the larger market. But we have technology for men's as well. And we actually have all of the technology for men's at this point. But it's what we built out exactly.
Well, good. So how did you incorporate the idea of remote at your company? I mean, you're in Michigan. I assume you were there when the company started. She's in Palo Alto. That's what, about 2,000 miles apart?
That sort of reality is part of why we started remote. And there are financial reasons why hiring in Ann Arbor, hiring engineers, is a lot cheaper than hiring engineers in the Bay Area, and living in Ann Arbor is a lot cheaper than living in the Bay Area. So those realities definitely influenced it. I think as the housing and rent there grows more and more untenable, you'll see more of that financial reality impacting things. But yeah, so we started remote, and we meet up occasionally. The only time we've actually been together as a whole company for an extended period of time was we were part of the Techstars Accelerator program. And that was in Minneapolis. So we all picked up and moved to Minneapolis for a few months. And really worked on the company. And that was great, but that was, I would say, largely due to the influence of the program, more than the influence of being together in the same room. I don't think we've ever been substantially hindered by the distributed nature of our company.
Interesting. And we've mentioned 3 cities so far. Are you in other cities in the U.S. and are you international at all?
We are, all of our employees are in the U.S. We do have some international, H-1B visa type employees, but they're located in the U.S. That said, we're not inherently opposed to international. We're just small still, and that is the circumstance of how it has worked out so far.
Yeah, I mean, because time zones do present a different dilemma.
Time zones are a different beast.
Yeah.
In the U.S., you're getting 3 hours most of the time apart, maybe 5 or something if you're working with Hawaii or Alaska.
Right, that's right.
But when you start getting to Europe or Asia or Africa, it's
a whole different
The
ballgame.
time zone is real.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's a barrier.
Yeah. So now the ongoing pandemic, which we seem to be starting to come out of now, caused a lot of, that caused almost everybody to go remote, in mid-March. You already were remote, but did that cause any roadblocks or challenges that you didn't expect?
So honestly, for us, we were already remote.
Mm-hmm.
Our development schedule was largely not impacted. The manner in which it most impacted us was all of our customers were suddenly moving to remote, and suddenly furloughing people, and suddenly no one was going into retail stores and buying things. Um, so that definitely slowed down some of the sales conversations we were having.
Mm-hmm.
But because we were already remote, when this pandemic started, we were really robust to, uh, suddenly everyone working from home,
Yeah.
as a company. So um, I would say we've still seen a drop in productivity, um, but not nearly as much as if we had to shift from a full in-person workplace to a full remote workplace.
Probably. And I don't know. I mean, I don't buy a lot of clothes. So, do you know if
Sure.
retail stores are open now, or if there's a date for them to open?
It depends. It varies state by state. So a lot of states are starting to open up. Some retail, some restaurants, but at half capacity or quarter capacity. So it's very variable, and it varies even more country by country. And we do work with some international groups that have different realities, but it is starting to open up again, if slowly.
And do any of your companies offer online shopping? I would assume they do.
Yeah. And so one of the big things that we enable is better online shopping. So that's better online shopping and better optimization of the supply chain are definitely big keywords right now, right?
Yeah.
Those are things people are looking for, that we can provide.
Interesting. So there were companies like Gaper that help develop, build, and scale products, especially for startups. You're kind of still in that startup range, I would say, right? You're not quite a.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. So how important?
We're still a 5-person company. So
yeah, you're a startup.
Yeah.
Well, good. So how important do you think companies like this will be going forward for companies that need specific talent and they need it in a hurry?
Yeah, I think it's particularly useful for if you need a specific talent that you don't have in-house, and that you either can't afford to or it doesn't make sense to hire because it's just a single project. I would essentially never recommend outsourcing your core technology as a startup. I'm a technical founder, so I obviously have that bias going. I know there are some successful startups that have been just a single non-technical founder outsourcing all of the technology and making it work. But I think those are few and far between. But I think if you have a project that is not a part of your core technology, that you don't have the expertise on board for, I think that sort of either remote or contract model is really good.
I mean, I'm from IT too, and I would agree with you. If you're a technology company, your core technology should be built with
If you're stick with technology, you ought to build that.
Right. But like a project like an integration to a CRM like Salesforce, that's a perfect thing to outsource.
Yeah. It's a so for example, we work with a lot of companies that are on standard e-commerce platforms. We built out a app integration for Shopify, and we did that in-house, partially because we wanted control over it, partially because we wanted to know exactly how that would work. But I think building out other integrations in future with those sorts of e-commerce platforms, it would make a lot of sense to outsource that.
Yeah, and I would assume Shopify would be almost a requirement for what you do. And integrate.
They're one of the biggest, for sure.
I don't think you can get around that one.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, this has been really fascinating. I want to thank you for your time today, and have a great day.
Yeah, thanks so much. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.